If you hate food waste and want some ideas on how to prevent it, keep watching. This video is kindly sponsored by Immy, so we'll be tackling what to do with food waste that we just can't save. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to be starting with is food that is in your fridge and it's slightly going off. I have some beetroots that, to be honest, they are perfectly okay, but for this video I just want to demonstrate what I would do with them if they were past their prime. A lot of people will suggest blending them up into smoothies or into pasta sauces and things like that, which I think is just a really great example of something you can do. Something I'm trying recently though is dehydrating. You absolutely do not need a dehydrator like this. I mainly got this because I wanted to experiment and try making my own backpacking meals, which are going to be more sustainable and a lot more affordable. So along with the beetroot, I'm also drying out some Thai chilies that we've had in the fridge. And my main purpose with these is to create powders or create things that I can add to other foods to ensure that I'm actually using them up. Now we've had a few bananas that were going off as well, and I've definitely eaten my fair share of banana bread recently, which is a great way to reuse bananas. So this time I wanted to dry out this fruit to check out again whether this would be a good option for a sustainable snack whilst backpacking. I always talk about making veggie stock from veggies that are going off or peels and things like that, but today I wanted to dry them out to see if I can make my own veggie powder. Now that the beetroot is ready, I'm going to blend it up to make it into a beautiful, rich, vibrant coloured powder. This can be added to honestly anything, smoothies, making pasta, to use as food colouring or dye for clothes as well. This is what the dried fruit turned out like. The banana was unbelievable, it almost tasted like banana bread. The peach was a little thin, so I'll know for next time to make them a bit thicker. For the Thai chilies, instead of blending them up into a chili powder, I decided to keep them whole. Okay, why do greens always seem to be the first to go off? Well, I've been experimenting with making homemade pasta, so let's see if we can turn these into something delicious. Now, I've become obsessed with pasta TikTok, where I've just been watching people making fresh pasta into different shapes over and over again. So let's try by making some different types, or if the first one, to be honest, just kind of trips me up, and we'll see if we can learn something from it. One of the best things about pasta is you just need to add water and semolina, especially if you're just making, a vegan version or an easy version. To go with this, I had an abundance of cherry tomatoes from the garden, and so I decided to make it confit as well because it's a great way of using them up, but also preserving them if you're not ready to eat them quite yet. The pasta was very easy to make, and it doesn't require any tools if you don't have them, just a rolling pin and some patience. It only took a couple of minutes to boil, and then I just added a bit of the tomatoes, some fresh basil and some salt. It's a really simple and easy way to use up wilted greens, so definitely give it a try. I also had some focaccia that had gone a little bit too stale, so you've heard this before, I'm sure. I just made some croutons. Sometimes when you have vegetables that are really small, you find it hard to find a way to use them. So for these tomatillos that came out of the garden, I had a real assortment of sizes. I decided to bake them in the oven and make a delicious green salsa. This can be done with any vegetable that's super small, just blending it up and putting it into something else. Okay, let's try these. So good every time. It only takes like 5 minutes. Okay, inevitably there will be some food waste that you can't actually eat, like these tomatillo husks. Or let's be honest, if you're busy and you forget that the stuff at the back of your fridge, or things happen and it's not something you should feel guilty about, there is a solution for everything. So I've been experimenting with many different composting systems over the past several years. I use the Lomi and continue to use the Lomi, which is very helpful, especially in the colder months. I also have worms. They're very active in the summer, which is very helpful. And then I've also been using these like bucket methods, which, let's just say, it was quite the experience when I finally opened one and put it in the garden. But the most important thing is that you find something that works for you in whatever space or situation that you have. I'm very lucky that I have a garden, and I'm very lucky that I have a space to put the worms and counter space to put the Lomi. I've actually just fed the worms a lot of discard or choppings from the tomatillo plants because they're dying back now, and from the tomato plants, so they're gonna be full for a while. I've also given them some food as well. So I just wanted to show you how the Lomi works if you're interested in something that's slightly more compact and you can have in a flat, an apartment, a house, especially if you don't have a garden space. So I've got some tomatillo husks, but I also have some other stuff in there which unfortunately went bad. So we're gonna put that in the Lomi and I'm gonna show you exactly how it works, because they've just come out with Lomi Bloom, which is an updated version of their original Lomi, taking into consideration all of their customer feedback and what they wanted to see with this new version. I actually loved my Lomi so much that I had it shipped from the UK to the US when I moved here. It's been incredibly helpful, especially if you live with someone who perhaps isn't as comfortable with composting and using worms, because I won't lie, that's quite an unpleasant job. So especially if you live in a mixed household of someone who's, you know, doesn't care about doing stuff like that, but someone who just wants something that's easy and convenient, this has definitely saved us a bunch of times and avoided food from going in the bin. So the first thing you want to do is to open up the filters and add the activated charcoal. This prevents any smell from coming out of the Lomi, and I personally think it's incredibly effective. They've also re-engineered this back filter so that it's very easy to take the top off and you don't have to unscrew anything. There's also Wi-Fi now available with the app, so you can connect your Lomi. You can use this to manage your waste footprints. You can see how much food waste you're turning into pre-compost instead of putting it in the bin. You can also buy Lomi pods, which act as compost accelerators, which are really great if you're using the Lomi grow mode. This is my favorite feature. I love being able to actually see the process as it's churning inside. There are also several modes, so while the Lomi is getting started, let's move on to the next food waste hack. If I have a little bit more of the focaccia left over and it's going stale, my favorite way is just to put it into a cast iron pan, or any pan to be honest, with some oil and basically toast it. It makes the rest of the bread really nice and soft, and it toasts the beautiful underside. And then I just made a open sandwich with some seasonal vegetables with the last of the tomatoes. The tomatillo salsa was looking so good and I didn't really need to add anything, so I just blended it. I'll add this to the fridge and it will probably be gone in a couple of days because it's so good. This is what the food waste looks like in the Lomi once it's almost done. And then you can just take it out and put it in your garden to fully become compost. One of the cool new features about the Lomi Bloom is that you can earn points from every cycle that you run. And you can use these to redeem for Lomi products or discounts on other of your favorite kitchen brands. If you're interested in checking out Lomi or Lomi Bloom, check the link in the description. And if you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below. Okay, so I actually think one of the best ways to reduce food waste is to have plants that are alive. And one of the easiest things to do in any space is herbs. This one's not looking particularly happy at the moment. I need to give this rosemary some love. But I've been experimenting recently with a DIY kind of budget hydroponics system. I have that really big one outside, but that's, you know, expensive and takes up a lot of space, so I wanted to try something slightly different. So currently I have this tray. This is just a stainless steel food container that I have been starting these in. I didn't actually expect them to get this big, to be honest, but I'm pretty surprised. These are loofah, so obviously I'm going for a slightly different thing here. But I think that this is a good example of if you wanted to have things like lettuce or herbs or any kind of greens, kale, mixed greens, things like that. They're really easy to start, especially if you have just a windowsill and a couple of these little pots. I found these at a local hydroponics shop and they were incredibly inexpensive, which is why I think they are a much more beginner-friendly, accessible kind of hydroponic system. These are ready to come out of here, so I thought I would try and cut out the shapes in the buckets that I bought specifically to transplant them into and give them a bigger space to grow much more. So we're going to do that today. I thought I would show you. I thought it'd be fun to see if it actually works. This is definitely an experiment, but so far it's going pretty well. So if you didn't want to transplant these into a hydroponic system afterwards, you could definitely just take them out of their pots and put them straight into some soil. Or if you want to keep going the water route, which I think is actually a lot cleaner, it's much easier to keep everything kind of tidy, especially if you don't want soil in your house. I know a lot of people don't, so yeah, that's just one option. But I also wanted to show you how the next stage goes, because again, this is an experiment, but I've had a lot of success with keeping plants alive and therefore wasting less food. Okay, going in from the side didn't work because I didn't really think about the angle, so obviously some of them just fell out. So I decided to use the other bucket and go in from the top. So I've got 6 holes in the top. I'm not going to let the other bucket go to waste. I'm going to re-engineer it in some way to make sure that they can actually fit in, but I think it might be a glue situation, so we just have to put in very young ones that don't have any roots yet. But the other one is looking great, so I'm just going to fill it up with water and nutrients, and then I guess we'll have to give you an update as it goes along. I'm pretty happy with how the hydroponic sort of bin is going. It's not really a hydroponic system, it's really just a bucket of water with some plants sitting in the top. So it's definitely very budget, very basic, but the plants seem very happy because they're used to being in water, and now they're in water that actually has the nutrients that they need. I'm definitely going to be continuing with this method. I'm going to see if I can thrift some more buckets because, you know, if we can do it in a more sustainable way, like buy secondhand, then of course that's the option that I'm going to go for. Next year, I think when I plant a garden, I am 100% going to start everything in the little soil blocking method that I did last year. That was very, very successful. Almost everything that I planted came up. And I think because the soil blocking method doesn't restrict roots and it allows them to grow as much as they need to, and then you can just separate them out. Also, the soil that I used was very important, and how I fed them as they were growing was very important too. I think growing plants in water is a really great beginner-friendly way to start producing food in a small space as well. So if you only have a windowsill, you live in a flat, growing herbs in this way is a really great way, or just like a small pot of soil. But again, if you don't want to use soil, you absolutely don't have to. There are so many more creative ways to build hydroponic systems, and I'm definitely going to be exploring that in the future. I'm going to try and get long rectangular shaped boxes that I can drill holes into the top and then layer them so that everything can come down. I think that will be a really good idea. This morning was quite cold outside, so we're going to the end of the main growing season. The hard frost is going to be in about a month's time, I think. So we're definitely going to be experimenting with hydroponics over the winter and trying to keep the garden or the kitchen productive and as sustainable as possible. One of the good things about the bucket method, of course, is it doesn't use any electricity and it's completely free once you have built it out. So yeah, if you liked this video and you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. It really supports my channel. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on Sunday.